I'm going to start this video off with a giveaway, the very first giveaway on this channel. If this video hits 500 likes, I'm going to give away one full license of DaVinci Resolve Studio. I'm going to pick a random comment from the comment section below, so make sure you leave your best film quote in the comment section. Also, of course, if you like this stuff, subscribe. The biggest selling point for me is that it only costs $295. And that is a one-time purchase, and for that you get the best color grading software out there in the market that has been used by hundreds of thousands of professionals around the world. Also these days, DaVinci Resolve is pretty much on par with Premiere Pro, Final Cut, Avid. It does exactly the same, and in my opinion, a lot more intuitive and also stable. Let's go over some of my favorite features in DaVinci Resolve, and maybe I can convince you to give this software a try. The first one is dynamic switching. So say I'm working in this edit, you know, it's great, and I know for a fact that there is a sequence or a part in my other project that I want to use in this project. Look how fast it is. I press Shift 1, then I go here, dynamic switching, click on it, and it opens up the project. Let's say I want this, I copy it, Shift 1, go back to the project, which is still open, and then Command V, and boom, there it is in full glory. That's how fast it can be. The next one is project archive. Let's say I am completely finished with my entire project and I want to put it on a disk into the closet and, you know, touch it again in a year maybe. Go to Shift 1, right click, export project archive, and then just, you know, desktop is fine. Save, and then choose media files. Perhaps you want the render cache as well. If I press OK, it will get all the files scattered around my computer and put it in one bin that I can put on a disk. And once I open that project, inside that folder, everything that was used in this project is in that folder. So it's amazing, saves me a lot of time. Don't have to drag everything from my download folder into my project folder. So it's just overall pretty fast. Next one is media management. This is a very powerful tool. If you go to File, Media Management, I can, for example, copy all the clips that are in my timeline, for example. And maybe if I only want to keep the trim, so I, cut parts of it, then I click on this one. I didn't trim anything in this timeline, so it won't affect the new size. However, if I did, for example, if I just, do this, do that, do this, you can see if I go back to the media management pool, timeline 1, and then you see that the difference is a little bit. But if you, of course, would do that to all the clips, you can save up tremendous amount of space. The next one is when you work in RAW, so Blackmagic RAW, Arri RAW, Rad RAW, doesn't matter what kind of RAW codec, you can do color management. This is extremely powerful because you don't have to grade all the clips to get a Rec 709 output. For example, this is quite flat, but if I go to my gear icon, go to color management, go to DaVinci YRGB color managed, and then put in SDR because it's an SDR clip, then SDR Rec 709, I press save, and then suddenly this clip is converted from log to Rec 709, as well as this clip, as well as this clip, as well as this clip. And the great thing about this is if your entire timeline is shot in Blackmagic RAW, it will do this all automatically. All right, next up is the cut page. There's only one thing that I kind of use in the cut page, and that is when I have my entire edit down and I want to create social media edits of it. Go to the cut page and I just cut it however I want. And the good thing is that I can still see my entire screen, but put in save guides. If I go to this drop down menu, I can put in, for example, a 4:5. And this way I can still see what is outside the frame, whereas if I change the resolution in the timeline, everything is cropped out and I don't see what is in there. So this way it gives me a little bit more flexibility. Next up, the edit page. There are, of course, a lot of features that I use in the edit page because I spend so much time in this, but the one feature that stands out to me is the trim tool. So the trim tool is basically the tool that lets you ripple delete everything from left to right or right to left by only using 2 keys. So I installed my own keyboard shortcuts. If you want the same, you can download them for free. The link is in the description below. Doesn't cost you anything. It's free forever. But if I, for example, want to delete everything from the left to the right until the playhead, I press W, and it will ripple delete everything at the same time. Now see what happens if I'm in selection mode. If I do the same thing and I press W right now, it will do the same, but it will stay in this sort of configuration. Whereas if you want to do a very quick and easy spot, you can do it with the trim tool like that. And you can go through your footage like that, you know, like a maniac. It's amazing, you know. Bam, 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 bam. All right, well, you get the point, I think. All right, next up is the color page. There's two features that I want to show you here that I really love. The first one is the color space transform tool. Go into the right corner to effects, scroll down a little bit, and then drag the color space transform tool onto the first node, and then, you know, just type in all the stuff that you used. So in my case, it's white gamut 4.5. Then I did it in film generation 5, and then I want to go to rec 709. And right now, my clip is transformed from my log profile to my rec 709 profile that I prefer to color grade in. And the great thing is that it is non-destructive. So it is not baked into the clip. So everything that I do before this node is actually affecting the log image. So that's amazing. You have so much more flexibility this way. And I highly recommend you use this as well because it's super stable. The next thing is once you, for example, have created a beautiful grade, you know, you added in some contrast and you made the colors pop, you know, just made them pink. That looks fabulous. Let's say you want to save this for the rest of eternity. You can do that by creating a new power grade album. So go here, name it my amazing purple grade Hotza. You can save it, grab still, and this is your power grade. Now, if you want to save this onto Dropbox or Drive, for example, just export it. Make sure you export it in DPX, and then it will be on your drive forever. You can upload these DPX files back into Resolve, and everything that you put into it will remain the same. It's amazing, super fast, and as you can see, I did it for so many projects. This way I can keep on holding on to my grades that I created, that I'm proud of, or that I think are worth keeping and holding on to. So that's that. Now, one thing that I forgot to mention is Fusion. Fusion I rarely use because it has a pretty steep learning curve. However, I still do sometimes use After Effects. And my workflow, that's what I'm going to explain to you now. So pretty much I only use After Effects for animations. So for example, this animation I made a couple weeks ago for a video, and it just shows like what kind of color bit depth is available to you in which codec. Now, of course, this looks pretty cool, and you can do this in Fusion, but I just make this stuff a lot faster in After Effects. What I do next is I go to File, Export, Render Queue, and then to lossless, and here at channels, I go to RGB plus alpha. Then I save it, and once I did that, I can just drag in my animation. Of course, this is already pre-done. I can drag it in, and as you can see, it is nice and transparent. That is the great way of this whole alpha workflow, and you can just use, well, basically this animation in any program whatsoever. Next up, the Fairlight page, and we're going to talk about the compressor and the EQ because both they're built-in and super efficient and powerful. The first one is the compressor. The compressor is kind of the contrast of audio. So whenever I add in contrast to, for example, 4 dB, and I put my compressor on, it sort of drags up my my higher frequencies and sort of cancels out the frequencies that are more silent. So whenever I'm speaking, my voice is more noticeable, but whenever I'm not speaking, the noise floor will be sort of dropped down. Okay, so it's very nice to use because your voice sounds a lot richer. Now, to control this a little more, I use EQ, equalizer. This way I can sort of play around with the different frequencies along the entire frequency scale. So I know that my voice has quite some low end and I kind of like it, so I tend to boost my low end a little bit more. So I add in a little bit extra on the low end until about 225 Hertz. Then I also add in a little peak at 500 and a little peak at like 4K. And then sometimes I add in a little bit of higher frequencies at the end. This personally gives me a really good result. You just have to play around with your EQ because every voice is different. So for every gig that I do a different sort of line. Also, sometimes you need to cancel out wind noise. Then you just add in this high pass and you just drag it all the way up to, let's say, 125. And then you notice that the wind noise is gone. So you can just play around with this until you're happy and satisfied. Next up, the deliver page. The one feature that I love absolutely so much is the individual clips render option. So for example, I have a bunch of clips here that I want to export for, let's say, ArtGrid or for whatever reason. I can do that. The great thing is that I can add in my codec. So for example, I want to save it as a ProRes 422HQ file. And then I go to File, I name it my clips. And then my suffix is, use unique file names always, suffix. And my suffix is something with 4 digits. Now it will create a file name that is called my clips and then like a 0001, 0002, and so forth and so on. Now I just add to render queue and wait until it's done. These were some of my favorite features of DaVinci Resolve, and I hope I kind of inspired you. If that is the case, you can download the software for free. The link is in the description below as well. So click on it and download it and try it out for yourself. And yeah, if you want to have a chance on winning the studio version, make sure to leave your favorite film quote in the comments below and like this video. And with that being said, thanks for watching, and I see you guys next week.